I get asked by people who are naturally against AI why I would even consider using such a technology. Don't authors like to write? Isn't that kind of what we do? And therefore, isn't using AI sort of defeating the point of what we actually like to do? I also get a lot of authors who just have this natural assumption that if you use AI, it's like pushing a button and then the AI just does all of the work for you. And because there's that misconception, that leads to an assumption that people who use AI are just inherently lazy. But as a professional author who's been doing this for years now, long before AI came around, I can tell you that that really is not the case. In fact, I found that to properly use AI into your writing in a way that makes sense, it requires a lot more work than you might think and actually doesn't save a whole lot of time. At least not if you keep the sort of high standards that one might have when writing it out on your own. So if that's the case, then why bother using it at all? And this is why I'm going to tell you why I actually write with AI, as opposed to the assumptions that a lot of people might have. Now, to give you a little bit of background, back in 2019, I had just finished my 9th book that I had written in just over a year. It was called Night Rising, and I had just actually finished the sequel to this book as well around that time. Since rebranded this, if you're looking for that book, you won't find it, but it looks like this now. It's called Path of the Dragon. I'll get into why I rebranded this in a second. But this book right here, basically it and the sequel that followed were the 9th and 10th book that I had written over the course of just over a year. And I was pretty tired from writing at this point, but I was really motivated because I was so sure that this series was going to make me the big bucks. Now, if you're familiar with success laws and things like that, you'll know that putting all of my faith on something being a moneymaker is a really bad way to start, because by putting my focus on the money that this makes, that's something beyond my control that I can't actually guarantee, because I can't control whether this book will make money or not. What I can control are things like, do I have a regular writing habit? Am I constantly working on improving my craft, etc.? So I had written this book and I had written the sequel, and I had prepared to release them very close to each other in this grand elaborate plan to have this really nice release plan. I was so certain it was going to work. I was halfway through writing this book, the 3rd book in the series, when I released these first 2. And what happened is, because I had my mind so set on the money, when these tanked, and boy did they tank, I was devastated. I was in the middle of writing this book, and I was unable to continue for literal years. This book did not get finished for a long time after that. Because I had set my heart so strongly on the money, I ended up becoming extremely burnt out. Now, we could talk all about burnout and how the way to avoid it is basically to find things that you do have control over, unlike the money, that you can choose to reward yourself with. Like just saying, hey, I got better as a writer. I did my time writing, and that could be the goal, rather than trying to earn money. Being able to actually sit down and do your writing is something more within your control. But the point is, I burned out hard, and it was around this time that I got my job with Kindlepreneur. And so working for Kindlepreneur allowed me to continue to be in the author space and to work with authors and to really study how writing and publishing works and really get myself into that field. But I did sort of use that time to take a break from actually writing books, largely because I just couldn't do it anymore. I would sit down at the computer, hover my hands over the keyboard, and literally my hands would shake because of whatever mental blocks my mind had created, which are very real. For those of you who have experienced burnout, you will know it is very difficult to just push through. And it took me literal years for this to kind of get better. But then AI came around, and what I found is that AI managed to be just the little thing that I needed to push past whatever walls and barriers I had erected in front of me. AI was somehow able to get through that and allow me to actually start creating again. And I quickly learned, like anybody does who actually starts working with these tools, that it's not a button that you push and then out pops a novel. Far from it. In fact, it takes a lot of the same amount of work in order to bring a vision to life. If I have a specific story that I want to create, it takes quite a bit of work to actually make that vision come alive, just as it would without AI. But simply having the tools to spark ideas, to get me past the blank page, to do whatever it was needed to do to actually get some words on the page so I could edit it and make it my own vision, that was better than simply having a blank page and trying to do it all myself without any AI assistance. And being on this channel, I have heard so many similar stories from other people who either got burnt out, or I know some people who got long COVID and were dealing with a lot of brain fog. I've also heard from a lot of neurodivergent authors who realized that AI was exactly the thing that they needed to be able to get past whatever mental barriers that they had and be able to get their vision on the page. So even if you're struggling with something as simple as writer's block or blank page syndrome, AI is the solution for that thing. And if you're neurodivergent, if you have brain fog, if you have burnout, AI can help you in all of those situations because it's just the thing to get you past that little barrier of resistance to actually getting something that you can work with, that is malleable, that you can edit, that you can change, and it just gives you just that little bit of spark that you need to get going. And yes, sometimes that means letting the AI write out an entire chapter. And I know a lot of authors would consider that to be a lazy practice. And maybe it would be if that's all you did. But in order to get it to match your vision, which I am assuming that anybody who has a book that they want to write would want to do, any of those people can take what the AI gives you, and it is much easier to edit that text than it is to come up with the text your own just out of thin air. In the end, the resulting chapter should fit your vision. It doesn't matter if you got it there by yourself or if you used AI to help you. As long as the end result is the same, it doesn't matter how you got there. And like I said, I've often found that it takes the same amount of time, maybe slightly less, if I am using AI to make that vision come alive or not. But that still begs the question, why would I use AI if it doesn't actually save me time? Well, as I've illustrated with everything I've talked about so far, with the neurodivergence, or if you have burnout, or whatever the case may be, what I have found is that AI reduces decision fatigue. So let me briefly describe what that means. Decision fatigue is something that happens to you throughout the day. Every time you wake up, you are revitalized from your sleep, etc. And every time you make a decision throughout the day, you're actually depleting willpower in your brain. And you can go and look up any scientific book on the power of willpower, or rather the lack of power in willpower. And you'll learn that it's like a well, right? And it will eventually dry up over the day until you are able to refill that well through rest, relaxation, taking a break, and most importantly, sleep. And creative writing tends to be a very decision-heavy process. Every time you are writing a new line, you are creating a lot of micro decisions about what's going to happen next in the scene. You're saying, what is this character going to say? How are they going to say it? Would they actually say this thing? What would they do? How would they react in this situation? Is this realistic? Do I need to add any extra description here? You're making tons of little tiny decisions all over the place. And while I know a lot of this comes naturally to a lot of people, for me personally, after an hour or two of writing, I am exhausted from all of that decision fatigue, and I get very burned out over the course of a writing session. And that was the case even before I got burnt out in, the big sense. Some people get energized by writing, and if that's you, then more power to you. But for people like myself, and there are a lot of us, writing can be a very draining activity. I have found, however, that writing with AI makes the process a lot less draining. Even if I am only able to write the same amount of words in an hour as I could without AI, I get to the end of a writing session and still feel like I could keep on writing. So in a sense, I am able to write more with AI because I'm able to go longer. Whereas before I might be able to write 1,500 to 2,000 words in an hour, I might be able to write a little bit more, like 2,000 to 2,500 words in an hour. But the real strength is that writing all of those words really doesn't make me tired, at least not like it used to. And that is the main reason why I write with AI. It just helps me so much by keeping me from burning out, by helping me get past the blank page syndrome, and for basically eliminating writer's block from my vocabulary. I've said it many times and I'll say it again, there is no excuse for writer's block anymore when it comes to AI. AI will help you get past that writer's block, period. So if you would like to learn more about AI and how it can help you save your headache, even if it doesn't save as much time as you might think it does, then I would invite you to check out the rest of my channel. I have a lot of videos about AI. Additionally, I would love it if you could make friends with the like button. It gets smashed all too often on YouTube and it just needs a lot more friends. So please go make friends with the like button and I will see you in the next video. I've said it many times and AI makes writers... longer any excuse for writers. Oh gosh, man, why can't I say this?